We are reaching out to women and admitting new daughters, but not many of them are under 60. Our very first chapter, as you recall, was a Sunday school class for young women. Yet today we have very few young women in our chapters. So it's time for us to stop worrying about that and wringing our hands, and time for us to get work and take action. And thus tonight's program. I found out about Nadine's work when she sent in an application for a workshop for triennial, and it intrigued me. And so I contacted her and asked her to tell me more about it. And as we were talking, I realized that this would be something that would be wonderful also to share with you in the membership committee. So this is why she's here tonight. She's going to offer some insights she's gleaned from a cross-generational survey and focus group she has conducted. Anyway, she's going to give you, I think, a preview of that workshop. I also wanted to let you know that Nadine is from Province 4, and she's president of the Diocesan Assembly of Central Florida, which has over 1,000 daughters. Big diocese. She shared with me that her home church is St. Mary's, located in Daytona Beach, and it's the oldest church in Daytona Beach and has the oldest DOK chapter in the diocese, not age-wise, but has been in existence the longest because it was started in 1903 by 6 women. And how many do you have today, Nadine, in your chapter?
In our chapter?
Yes.
We have 27 members, and yesterday we had a newcomers class for women interested in becoming daughters, and we had 5. And one of them is a college student at Embry-Riddle University. She's been coming to church, and she wants to become a daughter. So woohoo!
Okay, well, you must have said some things that were the right things, because you've been.
It's not me, it's our Lord working with us.
Absolutely. Okay, Nadine.
All right. Thank you so much for your invitation to join. I'm really honored to be here. So anyway, what we're going to talk about tonight is understanding and improving communication between generations. And this project came about as a result of actually something that Monica Burden presented in 2022 at Cayuga. That's our Province 4 fall retreat. And she presented some information on the ages of our members across the country. And it sort of just stuck in my mind. And I've been thinking about how to grow our daughters, not only in the chapter, but with women of all ages. So what I'm going to present to you tonight is the result of about 7 months of work. We did surveys and got information back. We created a focus group in our diocese of younger daughters and got feedback from them. We did interviews with daughters in the millennial generation, and we read books. We read information from corporations who had done generational training with their own employees, and so it was a lot of gathering of information behind the scenes for this. So, and again, the purpose is to find ways to grow the order with women of all ages. So in the process of doing this, I found a passage that really struck me, and I'm going to read it for you. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And that's from Isaiah 43, verse 19. And I thought it really sort of fits what we're trying to do and is encouraging, because we know that God always makes a way for us to do his will. And so what we'll be covering tonight is identifying the generations for our membership currently, stereotypes of the generations, identifying their varying perspectives and preferences, explore common ground. We will talk about actions to bridge gaps, and we'll explore growth opportunities for not only Daughters of the King, but our churches as well. And it's an opportunity for us to grow spiritually. So this chart, Monica, you're going to see this as familiar, because this is information that you presented at that workshop in 2022. But right now, this is membership by generation for Daughters of the King, and this was information gathered from the national office. So you can see that 48% of our membership is made up of baby boomers, and those are people born between 1946 and 64. And you can see the age group. And then silent generation is next at 33%, and those folks are just a little older at 78 to 95. Then you have Generation X, 45 to 58 years of age, and at 8%. And the greatest generation, those are women at 96 years of age and older, 2%. Generation Z, those are 6 to 28-year-olds, make up 2% of our membership, and millennials, 27 to 44, are only at 1%. And the unknown is because some women did not share their year of birth, so we don't know what category to put them in. Okay, so that's that. Now let's take a look at the general population in the United States. You can see that it looks very different from the membership of our Daughters of the King, with Generation Z, the 6 to 28-year-olds, at 23%, millennials make up 25%, Generation X 22%, baby boomers at 24%, and the silent generation at 7%. And now let's just take a look at some of the stereotypes that are associated with these generations. In the silent generations, these are traditionalists, patient and persistent people. They're tech disengaged. They did not grow up with technology. And sometimes they can be seen as stubborn or inflexible. Baby boomers, mostly conservative workaholics. I can identify with that one, and I am a baby boomer. Resistant to new tech. I mean, we've all had to dig in and get uncomfortable to get where we are with it, but it doesn't come naturally because we didn't grow up with it. We can tend to be selfish and materialistic. Generation X tend to be conservative, but they are a bit cynical. They ask a lot of questions as to why we're doing things. They are tech users, didn't necessarily start growing up with it, but they came along because things moved rapidly in technology as they were coming through school. They can be skeptical, but they are self-reliant. And then millennials, they are socially aware. They have a tendency to feel entitled. They are tech savvy, self-absorbed. Some of this is because of during the time of COVID, they were working from home, and so they didn't have a lot of interaction in the office or with other people. And the higher up you get in your tech savviness, the less interaction there seems to be face to face. And that is really true of Generation Z. This group, again, these are stereotypes. They are aware of diversity and inclusion. They tend to lack people skills. And again, it's because they're always on a device versus speaking to people. They are dependent on technology, but they can be impulsive and unfocused. And one of the things I learned about this group is that a lot of these folks belong to about 12 different social media sites. So they are constantly checking these different websites. And even a simple thing like going for a driver's license, this generation doesn't run to the DMV when they're 16 years of age. They're waiting much longer to start driving. And part of it is that, you know, they're interacting socially on these websites, and there's less of a priority to get out and drive to meet people. These are the communication preferences for the different generations. As you might expect, the silent generation tends to be like face-to-face interaction. Baby boomers, we like the telephone, face-to-face, and email. Generation X, email and text messages. And millennials, my daughter is a millennial, and you see text messages is a preference for communication for them. I can tell you that when I send my daughter an email, she may respond 2 weeks later, but if I send her a text message, she'll answer in 30 seconds. So I don't know if you find that to be true with your millennial children or grandchildren, but it seems to be their way. And they rely on social media, and they go online for information and use their mobile devices. Generation Z uses handheld devices and FaceTime. So if you try to send them an email, they probably won't read it at all. So now we're going to move from our broad learnings to our diocese, and that is the Diocese of Central Florida. So we created a focus group. We had 10 daughters in the focus group, and they're under the age of 50, and they shared their thoughts with us. We had 3 Zoom meetings with them, and we asked them some basic questions. One of them was, what drew you to the Daughters of the King? And they saw us as ladies with a lot of energy. They see us as prayerful, inviting, supportive, that we're on a mission. They felt like we could be mentors for them and spiritual leaders. And they really were looking forward to that. Then we asked them, what are the barriers of attracting younger women to the order? And they were brutally honest. But you know, if we don't hear them and listen, then we have no chance to change. They said that sometimes the meetings were not always enriching. They talked about sometimes the chapter meetings were a lot of time was spent on reviewing the minutes from the last meeting or talking about what was left in the treasury. And they felt like that was a bit of a waste of their time. They see the image of the order as the order of the retired ladies. They didn't feel that there was always a good explanation of what Daughters of the King is. They sometimes see older women as inflexible at times, and they really don't like to hear language such as, we've always done it this way. So I've tried to think about how many times I may have said that and just be more aware of it and not to do that. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is that when they went through the study guide and they covered the chapter on spiritual gifts, they said afterwards that no one asked them what they felt that their spiritual gifts were and how they would like to use them in the chapter. So, you know, that was a big wake-up call for me, because that's an easy thing to correct. They asked for childcare. Some of these women have children, small children, and they need help with childcare if they're going to come to a meeting. And they said that sometimes the meeting times are inconvenient for people who work. I know my own chapter, when I first got there, was meeting on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. So anyone that was working couldn't attend. So we now meet at 9:15 between the two church services on Sunday, and we have 15 to 20 women from our chapter attend, which is great. Our focus group said that we need to have more flexibility on the National Study Guide. And by that, our discernment period is 3 months long. And I'm not suggesting that we shorten that in any way, because, we are asking people to make this a lifelong commitment. And so they really need to discern and think about doing that. But it doesn't mean that we have to do the study guide over 12 weeks of time, because, this group of women just cannot be there 12 weeks in a row on a Saturday or a Sunday to go over the study guide. So there are different ways to do it. I understand that there's a diocese on the West Coast that is using Zoom to do training. There, we can do things like cover several chapters at once, allow our younger daughters to work online and answer the questions, and then we can regroup and have a discussion with answers to the questions. So it doesn't have to be regimented as a once a week over 12 weeks. Okay, so in thinking about where we have common ground and differences, what are some of the changes and actions that we could possibly take? Well, first of all, our focus group told us that they would like to strengthen the bond with older generations, because they recognize our ability to be mentors for them, and they see that as a real plus. They asked us to have more sharing of testimony and faith walk when we have meetings, not only at the chapter level, but when we get together as a diocese. So we've made some changes. In September, when we had our fall assembly, we had one of our daughters share her faith walk, and she had some very serious health issues, and so did her daughter. And through prayer, they're both healthy and doing well. And when she shared that story, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. It was very powerful. Our focus group asked us for generational training for better communication and understanding. And so that was really another reason why we put this presentation together, so that we could have a better understanding and communicate better with one another. And once you understand where they're coming from, then it makes more sense. Online options for study guide, we talked about. They asked that we increase social media presence, because a lot of times they said we don't have time to read emails, but we want to gather our information through social media. So we actually started a Facebook group page for our diocese, and we have 124 members on that. And we updated our diocesan website so that we have meetings posted on there. We have actually maps of our deaneries and our diocese and province, just general information and contact information, so that they have a way of getting a hold of chairpersons and officers. They wanted us to be digging into scripture together and have more fellowship, focus on prayer and spiritual growth together at our meetings. They want to be spiritually fed when they come to meetings. That's the draw for them. These are people that are running with hair on fire, a lot of demands on their time, and they really look forward to coming to meetings and interacting with daughters as their place of peace, and a place for them to be able to unwind and relax with women who can understand them and mentor them. We can work on having a more consistent and better explanation of what Daughters of the King is. We're working on that. And well, you can see there, the last thing is that we be willing to change and try new approaches and listen to them. We conducted interviews, and actually Monica Burden and I had a long chat. Another person that we talked to was Michelle Tepper. She is the wife of a priest of a church in our diocese, and she is also a director in the state of Florida for the Alpha program. And she has worked with a lot of young people. Both Monica and Michelle are millennials. And so they gave us a deeper insight into where the millennial generation is coming from. Again, they expressed that, they don't really have much free time. Again, demanding careers and then children and families, and they just don't have a whole lot of time. The job market is unstable, so they don't look at having a job for life like we baby boomers have, because it's just not like that for them. They don't always trust religious leaders, and yet they crave ritual and are looking for a church home. So I guess because of the instability in the world, they're looking to have some stability in their life, and they feel like that could be through a church home. They were talking about feeling that sometimes guilt is imposed if they're not engaged in service as other daughters might think they should be. And right after this interview, I was reading a book that our new bishop wrote, and it's called Know the Heretics. But he had a question in there, and it struck me, and it is, do you have a pet work that you believe others must do to enjoy God's favor more fully? Perhaps at times you feel or act like their status as good Christians is in jeopardy because of it. That was very striking to me, because I don't know, we just need to be aware, are we coming off that way to younger women? And then both Monica and Michelle reminded us that there are seasons in life. So prayer, service, and evangelism are going to look different in those seasons of life. So for instance, with the younger women, we've already talked about how they are a lot of demands on their time. They're running hair on fire, so to speak. And so, that's that season of life. And yet we've all had calls from daughters who are older who are saying, I'm thinking about turning in my cross because I can't be as active as I once was. And I don't feel like I'm a good contributor any longer. And we really need to impress upon them that no matter where they are, if they can't get out anymore, even if they're in a nursing home, that we still find them to be valuable members, because they can still pray for people. And that is our most important vow. So we need to nurture them and let them know that they're valuable. So again, from one end of the spectrum to the other, there are seasons of life, and prayer, service, and evangelism is going to look different. So we just need to be aware of that. Okay, we also sent out a questionnaire to our diocese. It had 12 questions in it. This is a concise amount of feedback that we got from it. So Generation X, they said, I want to be treated with respect. Listen and hear me. They like meetings to be organized. They look forward to fellowship, bonding, mentoring, encouraging growth, and they're looking for us to be willing to be more flexible. Baby boomers, we also got feedback that we want to be treated respectfully. Be honest with me. Younger people like to take shortcuts. We are willing to be mentors and learn from others. So next, Millennials and Generation Z, they said, treat me with respect. They struggle with religion. There is little knowledge of the Bible in this group. So Generation Zs and Millennials perhaps did not go to Sunday school or have a lot of exposure to church. So they don't have a lot of knowledge of the Bible. And in this group, there is depression and desperation. And some of that, I think, is because of the technology. They're not interacting with people. They work from home. During COVID, they were isolated. And so this has created a mental health issue in this group. And again, we just need to be aware of it so we can communicate better and draw them back in. So we were looking at exploring options to bridge the gaps. I mentioned that we've started a Facebook page, and probably a lot of you have that in your diocese. Then we're also going to have an Instagram page. And I know nationally, we're in all of those social media places. We are going to change up the way we approach our study guide to be a bit more flexible when we need to be. And mainly listen, hear, and value people's opinions, because that was something that was consistent through all the generations. And we really need to focus on that. Treat each other with respect and honesty, and make our meetings spiritually deep, that we're sharing our faith journeys, and that most of the time is devoted to a spiritual discussion, because we need to be spiritually fed. And I know I'm preaching to the choir to this group, but we need to find a way to make sure that this gets permeated across every chapter, and then schedule more social activities as a group so we can get to know one another better, and just be willing to open to change. So I think, what you won't see here is, okay, we need to do this, and this, because this is just a way of getting people to think about what might need to be done in their local areas. Because if I were to impose my plan on you, then it's not your plan. So hopefully this will stimulate a discussion, and people will come up with their own action steps that are appropriate for their chapters. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is growth, not only in the order, but in our churches. And our bishop recently held a session with the authors of a book called The Great Dechurching. And he had the two authors come and speak, and they presented some data that they had collected. In their book, they said that there are 40 million people that are dechurched in the United States. And there are various reasons that people have stopped going to church, and they broke them out into different groups. One of the groups is evangelicals. These are people that still believe in God, but they just don't go to church anymore. And yet belonging is still important to them. And this seems to be the group that would be the lowest hanging fruit, if you will, in order to get back to church. Some of their reasons for leaving church is that they moved. Maybe it was a corporate move or personal move, and they just didn't find a new church in their new location. When they did go to church, they didn't experience love there. They didn't feel like they fit in. And then COVID hit, it got them out of the habit. They have friends that are not attending, and some of them, through either divorce or remarriage, felt uncomfortable in church. And as a result, their situations, many of them face mental health issues. There's anxiety, depression, loneliness, suicidal thoughts. And I mean, is it a surprise? I mean, if you don't have Christ in your life and you don't have a circle of people who share prayer with you, no wonder there's depression there. With this group, the evangelicals, what will help them to return? The authors of that Great Dechurching said that all they need is a nudge, a simple ask. Would you like to come to church with me? Or ask them to come to something that's happening at your church and have them get exposure. Really encourage them to know that they can make friends by coming to church, and that they're going to hear the gospel, which they have said they would like to hear doctrine and sticking to ethics. And if they come to church, they will see us live it, and through prayer and Bible study as well. So it's an opportunity not only to grow our churches, but to help our rectors in this area and work with them. And the more people that we can help bring into the churches, the more of an opportunity it gives us to attract women of different ages to become daughters as well. So it seems as though we have almost a twofold opportunity here, is to grow with the women that are already in our churches of different ages, but then also to bring people into the church. So in closing, let us all be willing to change and bridge the communication gap between the generations. And with God's help and guidance, together we can do more than we ever imagined. And then these are all the references for what I've presented here for you today. And with that,